question what their firm and solid belief systems are. So sometimes it's useful to take some of these extreme philosophies from some esoteric belief systems and play with those ideas and see whether or not they have any validity or whether they could be the catalyst to change the way that we look at the world. And last time I talked just about this very idea of, and it's the second pillar of Zen, which is no self, that there is no such thing as an individual self. And when people hear that for the first time, it sounds ludicrous. It's like, what do you mean I'm not me? What do you mean I'm not this person who has built all these experiences in my life? I'm me and you're you. Well, there are belief systems that say that what animates me is the same thing that animates you. So therefore, we're the same thing. I'm alive, you're alive. I mean, you can use any words you want, but there's a commonality in our experience. We do things kind of the same way. We experience things kind of the same way. Our bodies, our experiences, what we've been exposed to is like a filter. I mean, imagine, let's go back to the great metaphor that all there is light and love, okay? So if the universe is just light and love, that light shines through us, and we're simply a filter that changes the color of the light to the point that when I look at you and you look at me, we look different because our filters are different. The light has been filtered through all our experiences, through all our beliefs that we've been taught, through the way our bodies are, the way our minds think. But those are just things. In Buddhism, one of the tenets of Buddhism is I am not this body and I am not this mind. I'm something else. And when asked, well, what are you then? There's no answer because nobody knows. But they do know it exists because it's what animates everything. It's life. I mean, you give it all kinds of names, but there is something that is happening here. Something. I'm just not electrical impulses and moving blood and processing of food materials that creates this thing that can think and do things, and there's something else here. There has to be. How could there not be? I see it so clearly because I'm not sure why, but I do see it so clearly that I know that deep inside me, I'm not even sure that's the right phrase, but there is something here that was here when I was born, and it will be here when I die. And it isn't a me. It isn't personal. It's a collective energy, a collective, I hate to put any word on it because as soon as you call it something, you say it's not something else. But there is something. And in Buddhism, they call it that which is, because that's just a cute little way of saying we can't say what it is. But it is the same thing that is in you, and that is in me, that is in this rug, that is in a tree, that is in a flower, that is in the universe. It's all the same thing acting through whatever it can. Now imagine for a minute, I'm going to repeat I'm going to go a little bit back into what I talked about last time because I think it's sort of unfolding in this too. Imagine for a moment that there is this, let's call it potential. It's the potential to be. It's the potential to do. It's nothing, but it's also something. And it's kind of like electricity going through the wires. It's like you can see the wire, but you can't see the electricity. So let's just, for that moment, let's call it potential. So potential isn't physical, but when it experiences a physical thing, it can it can operate through that physical thing with whatever faculties and facilities that that particular thing has. Say it's a tree, okay? A tree grows and a tree dies. It creates leaves, it drops leaves. It pulls nutrients out of the soil, it pulls water out of the soil, it creates food out of that, it grows cells up until a point that it dies. So that potential is entering into that tree and making it do all those things, but a tree can't walk, a tree can't talk, and it can't think because it doesn't have the faculties to do that. If it could, it would, because the potential would look for that and say, oh, look, this thing that I'm in has the ability to do this, and it will do that. Now, when the potential enters a human body, well, the human body has all these faculties, all these abilities. It can move, it can talk, it can think, it can, besides all it can grow and it can do all that stuff. But it has all these sensory organs. It can taste, it can smell, so the potential uses it to its full potential. Clever, but so, and if that particular body doesn't have the ability to do something, like it was born without the ability to walk or to smell or see, it was born blind, it was born without hearing, then it can't use that faculty because it's not there to use. So when you start to think along these lines, if it starts to make sense in any small way, we start to realize that we all share this common potential. Everything on the planet, everything in the universe does. So that there is a commonality. And so the question is, I love this, I always do this. So it's the question. The question is, so what? What does that do for us? Well, what it does for us is it removes the horrible sense of a separate self. What's the worst thing a human can feel? Separation. Non-connection to anyone else or anything. That is like hell for a human. When they feel so isolated, they feel no love, they feel no connection, they feel no purpose or point. That's hell on earth. So if we play with ideas, I can't tell you whether the Buddhist concepts or the Hindu concepts or any other concepts in this world are true. The Christian concepts of a personal soul, or the Hindu concept of what's called the Atman, which is very much like a soul, probably a little less personal than a Christian soul, and then the Buddhists believe in no soul. They believe in this common potential. Nobody knows whether these things are true. Collectively, they don't. But you can come to a realization or an understanding or an experiential feeling that you have a taste of what you believe. And when someone has that, it's pretty hard to talk them out of it. I've talked to a number of people that have had near-death experiences. And honestly, they've been all over the map as far as what they've experienced when they've died. And if you go to other countries, they don't have near-death experiences like other countries do, because it seems like our near-death experiences are filtered or controlled a little bit by what we believed in life. I have talked to people who have died, who have literally arrived in heaven. Pearly gates, angels singing, streets of gold, mansions on the hill, St. Peter visiting them, swear to God, that's what they saw, that's what they felt, and then they came back in their bodies and they had that experience and they believe it. I've talked to people in other countries who've had completely different experiences. No heaven, no nothing, it's not in their belief system, it's not in their culture, so they didn't experience that. And then you talk to Native Americans that have different experiences that are based more in nature. And you go down into some of the South American cultures, the shamanism religions that believe in sort of a mystical, natural dimension. And that's the experience they have. My point is that we don't know what happens. But a lot of people in this world know that there is something other than just their own individual personal self. And that's a comfort, in a way. It's a comfort to know that there may be the vaguest of purposes that this potential has. A potential, if you look at science, any kind of potential will look for a way to express itself. There's a saying in science that nature abhors a vacuum, meaning that if there's nothing somewhere and there's anything around it, it will rush in and fill it. That's the potential of the universe. Where it can go, it will go. What it can do, it will do. And this can be taken into kind of a spiritual context as well from science, that if there is a potential, then it will manifest itself in any way that it can. It's also a great explanation for evolution. As things evolve and change over time, it's because they can.